Great Britain looks like a nation where life is functioning normally. Below the surface, however, lies a growing sense that the United Kingdom is coming apart at the seams. King's College London professor of war studies David Betts set off alarm bells this year by saying Britain is headed towards civil war, and he advised people living in its large cities to move before the violence starts.
Imagine Northern Ireland scale, Northern Ireland in intensity, but on a completely national scale. Attacks on public figures, judges, potentially politicians.
London Daily Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley told us he agrees with Betts that Britain is heading for open sectarian conflict, possibly war, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
And his argument is this, that first of all, Britain displays many of the signs of being a failed state, such as economic decline, total loss of trust in the police, and a fractious and increasingly extreme politics.
At the center of this unrest is a government multicultural experiment that has brought in large numbers of Muslims without requiring them to integrate. More continue to arrive daily. This is Britain's southern border, the English Channel, across from the coast of France. And it's as porous as the Rio Grande River. 2 weeks ago, 1,200 illegal migrants arrived in a single day.
When you have a country in decline, and you add large numbers of new people into the mix, what you end up with is ethnic conflict over resources.
Experts fear all that might be needed to trigger a civil war is another terror attack. White working-class anger exploded last summer when the son of a Rwandan immigrant stabbed 11 children and 2 adults at a dance studio. 3 girls died. Social media posts initially misidentified the killer as an illegal migrant, sparking the worst riots in 10 years. Only much later did police reveal the killer possessed an Al-Qaeda training manual. Right-wing and working-class British are also angry over what they claim is a 2-tier justice system that favors Muslims. Last week, this man was convicted of a crime for publicly burning a Quran in a political protest. A Muslim man with a knife who threatened to kill him faced no charges. Lucy Connolly, a 41-year-old mother, is serving 31 months in prison for a tweet appearing to encourage violence against illegal migrants after the murders of those 3 girls in Southport. She got more jail time than some of the members of this Pakistani sex grooming gang, convicted for child prostitution and having sex with a minor. Add to this rising crime, Orwellian state censorship, and economic decline in many areas. Academic and news commentator Matt Goodwin.
I think there is a widespread consensus in the country that Britain is a nation in decline, economically, demographically, and culturally. There are areas that are just as poor as Eastern Europe, as parts of the developing world, in Northern England, in some of our coastal towns.
The perception is, among the white working class, that the state actively prefers ethnic minorities and is funneling resources their way. Some white working class people, they're saying, why is it they get hotel rooms? Why is it they get welfare when we are struggling?
The riots and the disturbances were symptomatic of a much deeper disillusionment in this country with the way in which British people just no longer feel safe in their own communities. They no longer feel safe in their country where lawlessness is essentially being sanctioned by the state.
Political strategist Dominic Cummings says elements within the British government are finally beginning to discuss Britain's slide into chaos and the potential for serious violence. Oliver J.J. Lane is the bureau chief of Breitbart London.
There are 2 sort of issues feeding into this, first of which is essentially civilizational collapse, which is causing a rise in crime and potentially civil unrest between ethnic groups. And then on the other hand, you have government incompetence and policing incompetence, and that creates that downward spiral.
One pollster conducting focus groups in small English towns this year said the disillusionment was the worst I've heard. In every group, it was anger, despondency, or misery about the state of Britain that doesn't feel sustainable. One focus group member suggested Britain might need a coup. Professor Betts says civil war could also break out in France, as well as the United States. Stanley believes civil war in the UK could be avoided through the spiritual awakening already underway.
There is something going on here. Church attendance is up. Young people are becoming more religious than ever. If there is a potential for change, it's going to come from society and the grassroots and ordinary people. It's not going to come from politicians.
The famous British economist Adam Smith cautioned the prophets of doom when he said there is a great deal of ruin in a nation. In other words, it takes a lot to bring a country down. But Britain now has so many problems, it just might test that theory. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.